Hello there, fellow truth seekers. This is Doug coming to you once again on this here Shabbat. I hope all of you have been blessed and had a good week. Everything's going well with you. Wow. I guess you got to be careful what you ask for. You might get it. This last video I did, I figured the title would elicit a pretty strong response. And of course, the idea is to get people to thinking, to discuss the scripture, to study it. And of course, I can't make anybody believe anything, and it's not my place to make anybody believe anything. My place is to present the scriptures as they are written, and you can do with it as you will. That's your decision. Everybody has to individually make that decision. And it's that's why we have to pray without ceasing. As Paul said, pray without ceasing. And that doesn't mean you just nonstop all day long pray. No, it just means don't quit praying. But pray without ceasing for wisdom, knowledge, understanding, and most importantly, discernment. Because you can have truth that is so close to the real truth to be almost indistinguishable. Now that may seem a little far-fetched, but it's not. The Prince of Darkness is a master at presenting truth that is twisted. Twisted just enough that it's no longer truth, because if it is not 100% truth, it's not truth. And so that's where discernment comes in. To be able, when you have those times where the two sides are presented to each other, and one can sound just as plausible as the other, but there's something going to be in one of them that is not exactly on mark, and it's going to be, the only way you're going to be able to tell is through discernment. And and that's why Yahushua, when he, his disciples asked him to teach us how to pray, and the Lord's Prayer, as they call it, and it was not that we are supposed to pray that prayer. That was an example of how we should pray. He says, this is how you should pray. He's not telling us to pray that particular prayer. He's just saying this is how you pray. And this is an example of how to pray. And this one is repentance. Forgive me for anything I've done, and forgive me of my trespasses as I forgive others who have trespassed against me. And don't let me be led into temptation. Because I don't think because he tells us he doesn't tempt us. We're tempted whenever we begin to lust. And then Satan takes the reins and leads us right on into it. Leads us into the temptation. But we are to pray for things that are right, that are for our benefit, that will help us to have understanding, to help us to have the wisdom to know the truth, to have the understanding, to have the knowledge, and most importantly, to pray for discernment, to be able to know the evil from the good, because there is times when they are so close that it's almost impossible to tell the difference. And I've seen a YouTube video. I think I may have watched a little bit of it, but I didn't really fully watch it. But I watched enough to see what the person was saying. They were saying anybody that's a truth seeker doesn't know the truth. Well, nobody has all the truth. I mean, if they did, then we could just set that, book down and never read it again. But we don't. That's why he tells us to study to make ourselves, 2 Timothy 2:15, and I tell you this all the time, 2 Timothy 2:15, study to make thyself approved a workman unto Elohim, who need not be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. He also tells us that it is the duty, it's the glory of God, the glory of Elohim, to conceal a matter, but it is the duty of kings to search a matter out. Okay, so he doesn't always put everything right there, in simple terms. Of course, the plan of salvation, the idea of salvation, is really simple. I mean, it is, anybody can pretty much understand that you must believe on Yahushua. You must confess him. It's not just a matter of belief, it's a matter of confessing him. And not only confessing him, but believing that he was born of a virgin, that he was crucified, buried, and he rose again. That's the essence of salvation. John 3:16, pretty simple, But we prove our belief by our actions, by what we do. Because even, the devils believe, but that doesn't mean they're going to be saved. Because James pretty much clarified that you show me your belief without your works, and I show you my belief by my works. And it's, doing right things. Doing right by your neighbors. And doing right and who's your neighbor? Anybody. Anybody that's in need. If they're in need and you know they're in need and you don't help them, then you're not doing right. Even your enemies, he tells you, give your enemy a glass of water in my name. So, it's anybody. And by doing right, he said, that to pray for those who despitefully use you and persecute you. Why? Because hopefully the Father in his mercy might draw them to the Messiah. You don't overcome, evil with evil, you overcome evil with good. And so that's why. The only thing I'm going to talk about as far as last week's thing, I'm going to answer one of the posts on there, one of the remarks, and it's Revelation chapter 5. It says, see here, we're already in heaven. Well, I don't see anywhere in there where it says we're in heaven. What it says is, and I'm going to read the whole chapter. It says this is chapter 5 of Revelation, beginning at verse 1. And I saw in the right hand of him that sat on the throne a book written within, and on the backside sealed with 7 seals. And I saw a strong angel proclaiming with a loud voice, who is worthy to open the book and to loose the seals thereof? And no man in heaven, nor in earth, neither under the earth, was able to open the book, neither to look upon thereupon. And I wept much, because no man was found worthy to open and to read the book, neither to look thereon. And one of the elders saith unto me, weep not. Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, hath prevailed to open the book and to loose the 7 seals thereof. And of course, Yahushua is a man. Remember that. No man in heaven. And the elders, they are in the likeness of men. Okay, but they're not saints. They're the council of Elohim. They've been there since the beginning. They were there in Genesis 1:26, and he says, and Elohim said, let us, that's plural, make man in our likeness and our image. He's talking about the council of Elohim. Okay, and they look like men. All right. And it says, and I beheld, and lo, in the midst of the throne and of the four beasts, and in the midst of the elders, stood a lamb as it had been slain, having 7 horns and 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of Elohim, sent forth into all the earth. And he came and he took the book out of the right hand of him that sat upon the throne. And when he had taken the book, the 4 beasts and 24 elders fell down before the Lamb, having every one of them harps and golden vials full of odors, which are the prayers of the saints. Okay? If the saints are in heaven, why is there being prayers offered up? We offer up prayers here on the earth. And they sung a new song. And this is what it's saying. And I've heard them singing this in church today. It says, Thou art worthy to take the book and to open the seals thereof, for thou wast slain and hast redeemed us to Elohim by thy blood out of every kindred and tongue and people and nation. This is what their prayers are singing. I mean, when I used to go to the church, the Baptist church or the Free Will Baptist church, they say, redeemed, redeemed by the blood of the Lamb. They were singing this song. They were singing these things. And they were offering it up in their prayers. And it says, and they sung this new song, and they've been redeemed. They've been redeemed out of every nation, kindred, and tongue. They have. True believers have been redeemed. And hath made unto us, unto our Elohim, kings and priests, and we shall reign on the earth. And I beheld, and I heard the voice of many angels round about the throne, and the beast and the elders, and the number of them was 10,000 times 10,000 and thousands of thousands. It ain't talking about saints. It's talking about the number of the angels and the beast and the elders. It's not talking, that nowhere does it say that these are saints. It says, and I beheld, and I heard the voice of many angels round about the throne, and the beast and the elders, and the number of them was 10,000 times 10,000 and thousands of thousands, saying with a loud voice, Worthy is the Lamb that was slain to receive power and riches and wisdom and strength and honor and glory and blessing. And every creature which is in heaven, speaking about them angels and them beasts and them 24 elders, and every creature on the earth and under the earth, and such as are in the sea, and all that are in them, heard I saying, talking about John. John was saying, it says, they heard I saying, Blessing and honor and glory and power be unto him that sitteth upon the throne, and unto the Lamb forever and ever. And the 4 beasts and said, Amen. And the 24 elders fell down and worshipped him that liveth forever and ever. They all worship him. The angels, the elders, the beasts, they all do. All his creation worships him. That is right. Including the saints. But if you look at what it's saying here, every creature which is in heaven and on the earth and under the earth, talking about the dead, and such as are in the sea, the dead. Was it talking about the resurrection? You know, the earth gave up its dead and the sea gave up its dead. That's what it's talking about. And unto the Lamb, for and I saying, blessing, so, they heard John saying this. Heard I saying, blessing and honor and glory and power be upon unto him that sitteth upon the throne and unto the Lamb forever and ever. And of course, it's saying that the 24 elders fell down before the Lamb, having every one of them harps and golden vials full of odors, which are the prayers of the saints. If we were already in heaven, we wouldn't be offering up prayers. We would just be praising. And So, I mean, I don't really see anywhere there that it's saying that they, and it's saying this is in their prayers, this song. Well, we sing similar songs here on the earth right now. But, that's all I'm going to say about that. But anyway, to bring up some of the latest and greatest, as far as around here, we still have not had any rain. I mean, and it's getting really, really dry. And yesterday, they were spraying the skies unrelentingly. And this guy, I know, we kind of debate. I think he has a tendency to lean towards Gnosticism, and I've been trying to win him over, and I think I'm getting there. But it takes some people. It just takes time. They've been indoctrinated and into a certain belief, and it's hard to get them out of it. But I'm going to keep working on him. But he was telling me about, he was down in the Capitol down there, and they were really, I mean, he showed me some pictures of it. They were really laying it down heavy. And one of the things he's hearing is that we better be looking for some wildfires here. They're putting these metals down. These metals, when they burn incredibly hot. I mean, they burn way hotter than a normal wood tinder would burn, because it's all over everything. And not only that, when it did rain and they were spraying it up there, it got absorbed up into the trees. And they're full of this metal. They're full of powdered aluminum and barium, strontium. I mean, all these metals, they're full of it. And all they got to do is just shoot one of them directed energy weapons over here and get it started. And I mean, it would be just like in Northern California, up there in Canada, over in Arizona, over in Nevada. I mean, they're burning up everything. And there where it talks about a third of the green things being burned up, and it ain't just here in America and in Canada, North America. It's down in Mexico. They're having it too. Down in South America, all over the world, there's fires burning everywhere, and they're being deliberately set. And it's to force people into these 15-minute cities is what they really want to do. They want to drive people out of the rural areas into the 15-minute cities. I mean, these people tell you what they intend on. I mean, when you listen to the World Economic Forum and all these environmental people and all that stuff, their religion of environmentalism. Because it's the same kind of thing. I mean, it's a religion just like any other religion. And a lot of these people are just totally brainwashed. They don't realize that it's our own government and the power elite, the technocrats and all, that are the ones that are doing this, that are affecting the environment, the climate. They're the ones doing it. Now, of course, the sun has changed, and I mean, the output of it has changed, and it's incredibly intensely hot. It's white hot. It's totally different. It's not the yellow sun that we used to get. It's different, and of course, unless you have eyes to see it and understand it, you never know that. But people are waking up. I mean, every day there's more people that are waking up to the truth. I mean, like last night I talked, yesterday up at the shop I talked to a guy, and he said he was a certified cargo pilot, and I got to talking to him about the heliocentric cosmology and the flat Earth, and I pointed out something to him, and I mean I could see like. A light bulb lighting up, I mean, in his eyes. I mean, it was like something changed, I mean, in his paradigm that he's like, you're right. And what I was talking about was the moon, that it's been, here lately, it's been coming up during the day a lot. Normally it don't do that all the time. It's just every now and again, you'll see the moon come up, and I can't remember exactly what to call it, perigee or apogee or something like that. When you see the sun during or the moon when the sun's still up. And I pointed out another fact. I said, well, if the sun is up, you can see the sun up here and the moon is up over here, why isn't the whole moon lit up? Why isn't it? There's no earth blocking it, so why is not the whole moon lit up? Because it's not the sun that causes the moon to be lit. The moon is a light. It's a light just like this light bulb right here. But it's a highly advanced light that can, like a screen or something almost, that can just, and it's transparent. Because I pointed out, I said, if it's 240,000 miles out there in the blackness of space, then it looks like all you would see would be the lit up part, and then the other part would be dark, black, or whatever. But it ain't. It's not. It's the lit up part, half of it's lit up white, and the other part's blue like the sky. How is that possible? And the sun's up. How's that possible? It's only possible if the earth is fixed, flat, and unmoving. And that what the scripture says is that the sun is the greater light to rule the day, and the moon is the lesser light to rule the night. Light. They're just different types of light. And the sun can, it's an entity controlling it. Because the scriptures calls the sun a he and the moon a she. Now, whether they are actual entities themselves, these bodies, or they're being controlled by entities, I don't know. But I know that they can alter the output. And this is another thing. Anything that you take a source of light and you reflect it off of it, if the light is warm, it will heat up that body. Whatever you're shining it on will heat up. And then when it reflects off of there, it will reflect heat. But that's not the case with the moon. I've talked about that. You can, and this is an experiment you can do on your own. You can take one of them laser temperature gauges, it's like a little gun. You can point it at stuff and it'll tell you what the temperature of the surface of something is. And you can go out on a night when there's a full moon, and you can point it down at the ground in the light of the full moon, and then point it into an area where the moon light is not hitting it, and it will be 12 degrees warmer in the shade than it will be in the moonlight. It'll be 10 to 12 degrees cooler. The moon puts off a cool light, not a warm light. And if it was a reflected light from the sun, it would be warm. The scripture says that the sun runs a circuit, and there is no place that its heat is not felt. So if that's the case, that the heat from the sun, there's nowhere that it's not felt. Then if it's like what they say, that it's over here and the earth is here and the moon's over here and it's shining onto it and it's reflecting off of it, then it would be warm, not cold. And it's these kind of things that they can't, when you try to bring this fact up to scientists and the globalists or whatever, the people that believe in heliocentric cosmology, they can't give you an answer. Not a legitimate one. And so, but, I put this guy to thinking. And he was positive, and tell me this. I said, if you're flying, you're a pilot, and you're flying at 35,000 feet, and and your altimeter is telling you you're at 35,000 feet. I said, well, if you're going around a curve and you're flying like this here level, it would seem that the distance would increase. It would increase because according to their math of 8 inches per mile squared, in a mile that's 64 inches, because 8 times itself, which is the square, 8 times itself is 64 inches. That's like 5.5 feet every mile that you're going to be climbing and that your altitude's going to be increasing. So in 500 miles, you're going to be up another 4,000 or 5,000 feet. So you're not going to be at 35,000 feet anymore. You're going to be at 40 or 45,000 feet. And the further you keep going, level flight, the more it's going to increase if you're on a globe. To the point where you would be in space. And I've flown probably 50, 60 times on commercial airlines, and when they get up there and they get it their flying altitude, that plane stays level. I don't ever feel them curving it, bending it down, turning the nose down to kind of go around. Never have. It's always stayed exactly level flight. You see, but people are caught up in this delusion, and it is a delusion. I was caught up in it. I mean, I was raised to, went to the same schools everybody, same kind of schools everybody else goes to. And I mean, the first thing you see when you walk in the classroom, there you see a globe sitting over there on the desk. I mean, so they and then the way they try to make the flat Earth people look stupid is they always show you a depiction of the sun and Mercury and Venus and the Earth, and they show this flat Earth here with these globe planets, and that's not the way that it really is. The Earth is sitting in an enclosure. I mean, it's inside of an enclosure that is sitting on the bottom of a sea. The bottom of some kind of ocean or sea or something. I mean, I don't really know exactly, but I know the description that the Bible gives. It says that he separated the waters that were above the firmament from the waters that are below it. And whenever the flood came, the windows of heaven opened up and water began to pour in. Where's it pouring in from? Well, it's some kind of body of water that the enclosure that we're in is setting down. And Rob Skiba made a digital representation, a visual representation of what he believed that it's describing, and it makes sense that it's sitting, because outside of here we don't know what's out there. We really don't. The Bible really doesn't tell us. But we know there's water around us because David in the Psalm said, blessed be the heavens and you waters that be above the firmament. I mean, it's still there. It ain't never went nowhere. It wasn't, the water that came in here. I mean, in Enoch, he says he had a vision of these torrents of water coming through these 7 windows in heaven and pouring into the enclosure and it filling up. And then it, got pumped back out. And it took a year for it to be pumped out. And it was pumped back into that same body of water. And I believe that the reason there's water around it is that it keeps that dome from being able to, from the pressure inside, it keeps pressure against the outside to keep it from rupturing. And because the atmospheric pressure in here is, it doesn't seem like much, but it's really, it's really pretty high. It's a lot of pressure, and but it's over a vast area, so it doesn't seem like it, but it's quite a bit of pressure. I understand these things because I dealt with clean rooms and stuff, and in clean rooms you had to produce just a slight variation in the inside pressure to the outside pressure. You know, you had to have a little bit more pressure inside than out so that when you open the door, the air went out as opposed to trying to come in. And but you couldn't have too much because your doors would stay blowed open. And I've seen them where they got a vacuum on them and you couldn't open the door. I mean, you could not open it. And I've seen them in buildings where they were balancing the air and they didn't have it quite balanced right, and you could not close the doors. You couldn't close them. And it sounded like ghosts. I mean, whoo, all throughout the building. And I'm talking about massive buildings. I ain't talking about some little 10,000. I'm talking about 500,000, 750,000 square foot buildings. And, you know, and it sounded like ghosts in there, you know, and you could hear, you know, you could feel wind whipping on you and all that stuff throughout there. And you go down, the door be standing open, and you try to shut the door and you could not close it because of the pressure. Well, that's why you have this body of water around the outside of it. Now, is it an ocean? What is it? I don't know. It's vast, whatever it is, and of course his throne and his temple is setting up on top of here. There in Revelation chapter 4, he says, and they saw, you know, it was like a sea of glass, like crystal, in front of his throne. So he's setting up on top of this dome. His throne is, and he says he makes his pavilion in the waters, and there's waters around there. So, you know, I try to point out some of these things to people. You know, and of course, like I say, I was blinded to it, but you know, for me, it was, once my eyes was open, it was not hard for me to accept it, the real truth. But some people, it is. It really just so upsets their paradigm. And Rob Skiba, he was one of them. He admitted it took him over a year to really get reconciled to it, because he had dreamed of being an astronaut and going into space and all that stuff, you know. I mean, he was even in training to do it. But, you know, something sidetracked him away from it, you know. The Father had other plans for him. But that was what, you know, I mean, he showed pictures of his room when he was, you know, from when he was a kid, you know, and he had posters of Star Trek and, you know, Star Wars and all that kind of stuff, you know, and models of space shuttles and rockets and all that kind of stuff, you know, all throughout his room. I mean, that was his dream. And so when he come to, you know, when his eyes was open and he saw the truth, it really kind of, you know, wrecked his day, you know. I mean, so, you know, and people, you know, a lot of people say, well, what does it matter when it comes to salvation? It doesn't matter. Well, it's not about salvation. It's about truth. And people being deceived by this lie. And it's the same with the rapture and stuff like that, you know. I mean, you know, I believe, it's just my belief. I'm not making, you know, telling you can believe whatever you want. I can't make you believe anything. I'm just saying that, you know, like here in Enoch, and this is why a lot of the dispensationalist people really don't like the book of Enoch. This is the very beginning of, as you can see, it's an ebook, and you can see it says Enoch right there. This is the very beginning, chapter 1, at the very first statement. The words of the blessing of Enoch, wherewith he blessed the elect and righteous, who will be living in the day of tribulation, when all the wicked and godless are to be removed. And he took up his parable and said, Enoch, Enoch, a righteous man, whose eyes were opened by Elohim, saw the vision of the Holy One in the heavens, talking about the Mashiach. Saw him in the heavens, which the angels showed me, and from them I heard everything. And from them I understood as I saw, but not for this generation, but for a remote one, which is for to come. Concerning the elect I said, and took up my parable concerning them. The Holy Great One will come forth from his dwelling, and the eternal Elohim will tread upon the earth, even on Mount Sinai. and appear from his camp, and appear in the strength of his might from the heaven of heavens. And all shall be smitten with fear, and the watchers shall quake. And great fear and trembling shall seize them unto the ends of the earth, and the high mountains shall be shaken, and the high hills shall be made low, and shall melt like wax before the flame. And the earth shall be wholly rent in sunder, and all that is upon the earth shall perish, and there shall be a judgment upon all men. But with the righteous he will make peace, and will protect the elect. And mercy shall be upon them, and they shall belong to Elohim, and they shall be prospered, and they shall all be blessed. And he will help them all, and light shall appear unto them, and he will make peace with them. And behold, he cometh with 10,000s of his holy ones, to execute judgment upon all, and to destroy all the ungodly, and to convict all flesh of all the works of their ungodliness, which they have ungodly committed, and of all the hard things which ungodly sinners have spoken against him. And so, he makes peace with those who are the elect, his people, and he will protect them. There will be some that will be protected out of tribulation. They won't have to suffer all that stuff, but they're not going to heaven. They are taken to a place of safety. And he also talks about in the scriptures about how he will draw people from all over the world, out of all the nations, from the house of Israel. And, of course, and I've went over this with people, that the ancient house of Israel went into captivity among the Assyrians, and the Assyrians dispersed them out throughout their empire. They put some of them over where the Medes were at, some of them over there where the Persians were at, some of them over in Babylon, where the Babylonians were, and in other areas, Syria and all throughout their empire. And then they took people from Medo-Persia and from Babylon and took them and put them over in Samaria and in where the tribe of Dan was at, around Baalbek and all up in that area around in there, and placed people from them places over there. That's how the Assyrians did it. And because they were in captivity over there for 120 years, by that time they had began to assimilate in with these people. And then whenever the Assyrian Empire fell, they began to migrate. They migrated all over, and I mean, this is historically provable that they migrated across the Black Sea, and that some of them went down through the Middle East and went to the Mediterranean and went over into Europe through the Mediterranean. Some of them, they wound up in Greece, and they wound up over in Rome, or in Italy, Rome, and then they went over into the Middle East, or into Greater Europe, and worked their way over and wound up over into the British Isles, and then from there they went all over the world. But they had been intermingled with people. They were not full-blooded Hebrews anymore. And the same with the Jews. A lot of people think, well, the Jews all went over to Babylon during the Babylonian captivity, which there was 3 different events where they were taken back over there. The first one, I think, was when Ezekiel went over there, and the second one, Daniel, and then the third one is when Zedekiah had to watch his sons be killed and had his eyes gouged out, and then he was taken in fetters back over there, and I think he might have even died on the way over there. But anyway, those people that went over there, they were over there for 70 years. All right? And by that time, even though they didn't get dispersed out through the Babylonian Empire, they were allowed to kind of stay together. They began to marry Babylonian women, and even Persian women and Medes, and marrying into them, because you can read in Ezra, whenever they came back over there, began to come back, and they were working to rebuild the temple, and then eventually they started rebuilding the walls and all that stuff. Ezra told those people that were Levites, he said, if you want to be a part of the priesthood, you have got to put those women away. You got to, you got to divorce them because they're not Hebrew. You got to, you got to put them apart. Can't be married to them because they were married. They had married to these women that were not Hebrews, and so some of them continued. I mean, and a lot of them stayed over there. They didn't come back to Israel. They stayed there because they'd already made lives over there, and they were under by that time they were under the Medes and the Persians. And so they, and Cyrus, he was a pretty benevolent king. He was actually really, good to people. And there was a co-regency. There was Cyrus and there was Darius. There was two different rulers. There was the ruler of the Medes, which Cyrus was a Mede, and Darius was a Persian, I believe, is the way it was. So it was like a co-regency. Same thing as Rome ended up being, co-regency. They had a ruler in Rome and they had one over in Constantinople, and Byzantium, and back then it wasn't Constantinople. It was Byzantium, I think is what it was called back then. But until the time of Constantine, then it was called Constantinople. But you can see how these people got, and so they scattered out because, I was made a comment on another channel about Deuteronomy 28, the blessings and the cursings, and they said, oh, that's for the Hebrew people, the Israel. Well, scattered Israel is in every country in the world pretty much, but mainly in the West, and that's why the scriptures calls this the time of Jacob's trouble. The time of Israel's trouble. And it's not just talking about that little country over there on the Levant, the little nation of Israel over there. It's not talking about that. It's talking about greater Israel, the whole of Israel. And it's the time, look around at the troubles, and they're only increasing, by the day. And if Deuteronomy 28 is not playing out right in front of our face, I don't know what is. And of course, there are judgments, and there's tribulation, and then there's wrath, and there are differences. When you look at the early Christians, I truly believe that what we're going to see happening is going to be a return to like first century Christianity for the true believers. That you're going to have a return to home churches, people meeting in their homes. That come out of Babylon, my people. When they come out, they're going to be persecuted by the mainstream, and it's going to be the religious system that's going to persecute them more than anybody. And of course, the government's going to be led by the nose by this religious system. That's where you see the harlot riding the beast. The beast is the political military system, and the harlot is the religious system. And it's, riding this beast, which is indicating that she's controlling it, got the reins, controlling it. And of course, they're going to go after true believers, and they're going to go after Bibles. They're going to have their own, all-inclusive Bible. I just seen a thing where the Pope, he's over there in India or somewhere, and he's saying, we all really, are seeking the same God. And of course, even the Catholics at one point, they didn't say that, that they said that, their God was the only way, and all that. But now they're saying that, we all are, same thing when they went over there, this Pope went over there to Babylon, over there in Iraq. He went over there and to the site where the old Tower of Babel was at, and met with a bunch of these imams over there, and they have come to some kind of an agreement. Yeah, we're all really worshiping the same God. We just using different, we're going about, we're coming to him by our own methods, but we're all coming to the same one. Well, they are. They are going to the same one, but it's not the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And that's why there will be these Hebrew people that will be, Israel. I mean, he talks about the gathering, and he says that he will do it. Not the Zionist. No, he will do it by the strong right hand of his power. Well, who is the strong right hand of his power? Who's sitting at his right hand? Hamashiach. He's the right hand of his power. The captain of the host. He will be the one that will draw these people. He will put it in their minds to come there. When it starts getting really bad, I mean, he's going to draw them. Says he draws them over there, and not just the house of Israel, but the house of Judah as well, because they're scattered too. I mean, there may be some over there. I've said this. I don't say that everybody over there in Israel is Ashkenazis. There probably are some real Jews over there, from the tribe of Judah, but they're a minority. They're not the majority over there. The majority is Ashkenaz, and they admit it. I mean, I read the and of course it's out of Wikipedia, and of course you got to be take Wikipedia with a grain of salt. But whenever you look at when it's talking about certain groups of people, whatever's in there is the narrative that they want you to know, and they claim that they are Ashkenaz. The Ashkenazi Jews, and they allow it to be printed because they control what's going on. They're at the top of the heap as far as the ones between humans and these fallen ones. I mean, it's obvious whenever you see David Rockefeller and David Rothschild standing there, and the Pope is kissing their hand. And I mean, he's got this look of fear on his face. Everybody else kisses the Pope's hand, but he's kissing their hands. That ought to tell you something about who these people are. And then David Rothschild was at this big, gala or whatever, and Prince Charles was there, before he became king. And David Rothschild is doing this to him in his chest, and he's like, what does that tell you? That should tell you something. Who these people are. And they're in Revelation 4, or Revelation chapter 3. The church of Laodicea. Those who say they're Jews and are not. But they are the synagogue of Satan. That's who they are. And of course, sooner or later, I mean, they'll come after me. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, when it gets to that point where they're going to start going after people, they will. Because, I'm telling you the truth. And even they will come at, because there's some kind of written law, I guess, that, that they have to put out the truth about what they intend on doing. Either through some kind of symbology or through predictive programming, like in movies and in music and stuff like that. These things they do, like at the Oscars and the Academy Awards and the Tony Awards and music awards and all that stuff. These rituals they do, because that's what they do when they're there. They're doing these rituals, and they're mesmerizing these people. And all you gotta do is do your homework. I'll tell you, go read about Anton Mesmer and what he did as far as learning how to mesmerize masses of people Not just one person hypnotizing them or whatever. No, he developed the techniques to mesmerize masses of people using metals and water. And that's one of the reasons why they're pumping all this metal in the air too. It's not just, it's for many different reasons. One, it can be used against you as a weapon. Because if you have a microwave pointed at you and you got all this metal in your body, it will heat you up. I mean, it will heat you up and burn you to a crisp. Just like a microwave oven. That's why they're putting all this 5G and stuff out there. It is not for communications. This phone I'm using here, another phone company bought out the phone company that we were using. And I was using this phone, this phone. And whenever this other company told us, oh, you got to have this phone because that one doesn't have the capability of 5G. So we had to send that other phone back, and they sent us this one, and and of course it costs more money as always. But I've had it now for probably a year and a half, 2 years, and not one time have I ever seen 5G on there. Not once. It's still running on 4G LTE. Been that way ever since. I mean, the idea and this 5G stuff, and probably even more than that now. I mean, they're talking about 6G and 10G. That they rolled most of this stuff out during the pandemic. While they had everybody locked away, they were out putting this stuff everywhere. And it ain't just on these towers you see all around. It's in these metal telephone poles and all that stuff in cities. And these big ones out on highways, at interchanges, you see these great big tall towers with the lights shining down them. They're loaded up with it. And it's a weapon. It's a weapon of compliance. If you don't comply, they will dose you with microwaves and heat you up. And I felt it myself. I mean, at night laying there asleep and woke up hot. I mean, not like the heat just because it's warm, I mean, like from the sun heating it up in the daytime and all that, and then it's warm at night. No. I mean, when I went to bed, it was I'm in a basement. So it's, relatively cool down there. Even when it's really hot outside, it still stays pretty cool down there. And I can feel my body heating up. Okay, so, and not only that, but it waking you up and stuff. They're testing it. They're testing it, and they're trying to see what they can, do to people. And, and the more metals you got in you from this stuff, that's why you should try and do natural chelation. There's foods you can eat that will help to get rid of these metals out of your body. And to get rid of fluoride. Fluoride's another metal that calcifies your pineal gland, and it calcifies your brain. It's the root cause of Alzheimer's and these other neurological disorders that we're seeing just going off the chart. It's because of the fluoridation of water, and who knows what else they're putting it in. These drinks and all that stuff that they put in that people buy, and they make them addictive. My woman, she's addicted to Diet Mountain Dew. I mean, bad. It's bad, and all I can do is pray for her. And just warn her, about the effects of it on your health. That stuff is bad. I very seldom ever drink a pop. I mean, I might drink one every 6 months. I used to like to have one like with a hamburger or a piece of pizza or a hot dog or something, but I due to the research I've done and stuff, I've realized that that they're doing everything. I mean, yesterday I watched a video about up in the Northeast up there in Massachusetts, they were trying to figure out a way to diminish the effects of and the spread of the tick stuff, Lyme disease, and the word, you know, Lyme comes from Lyme, Connecticut, because that was the first place that they had a case of it, was in Lyme, Connecticut. And so they started calling it Lyme disease. But it had really, up there on Nantucket Island, up there off the coast of Massachusetts, it was really running rampant up there. And it was the black tick, black leg tick or something like that is what they call it. So these scientists up there at MIT or Boston College or somewhere up there, they decide that they're going to try to figure out a way to, because the one of the ways that this virus, and it's not really a virus, it's a spirochete. It's related to syphilis. It's a type of parasite, a little worm, and it spirals like that, so it's called a spirochete. And it, they said one of the primary ways that this thing is the carriers is mice. So they get the bright idea of taking and genetically modifying all of these mice, I mean tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of them, and introducing them. They said at first they tried it on a non-inhabited island, that they released them on there, and they wanted to see how they function, in the natural environment. And then they began to release them in the populated areas. And now they're finding out that it wasn't a good idea, because that it will affect the genetics, and because they are superior, their traits, they enhance their traits genetically, so that they are smarter and they're more equipped in the natural environment, so that they will basically end up killing off or driving away or diminishing the naturally occurring mice. And that they might, even begin to inbreed with them, and they have no idea what the results of that will be. The genetic results, and also they're more competitive for food and stuff like that. So it will begin to affect other animals that rely on the same food sources, and they multiply more rapidly than the naturally occurring mice. I mean, they like 5 times more rapidly. So they're going to overwhelm the natural environment in their ability to multiply. And here's another case of this. These people, that are being driven, satanically driven to do this insanity. They put these thoughts and these ideas into their heads, and then they act on them, and then afterwards, when they're done with them, they like, boom, and they try to cover it up. They try to hide it. They try to, get the media to downplay it, or to not talk about it. And that's what they've been doing. And just happened that somebody that was a hacker, one of these people that wear the Guy Fawkes mask, the dark web or whatever, they hacked into their system, and they got this information, and they put it out there. They just went ahead and dumped it, dumped all of it out there, and it's out there now. And of course now they're admitting it, that they did it, because they got caught, but they have no remorse for doing it. And these people to defend them, and they did this with the approval of 20 people that went to a town meeting on the island of Nantucket. They had like the council called a meeting, and 20 people showed up, and these scientists are there, wowing and dazzling them with their big, their big words, and convinced them that this is a good idea. And they said, yeah, we agree, because of their fear. They were so afraid of Lyme disease and the effects of it that they were willing to go along with this and give their approval to the town alderman or whatever, and then the town alderman gave these scientists permission to release these mice all over the island. And no matter, unless you do a long-term study of something like that to see what the effects are going to be, you don't know. You're just guessing. You're just speculating. You're hypothesizing. You don't really know what the effect is going to be. And they did no long-term studies. They've done a little short study out there on an uninhabited island, and, something like that, you need to observe it and watch it for 20 years to really know the absolute long-term consequences of it. But they didn't even do a couple of years before they released these things. And now, the way these mice breed, they are everywhere. And they said that it could even actually be that they might even begin to transmit some type of even deadlier disease that could spread to humans. And because they have been genetically altered to have a more robust system and a more robust immune system, then these organisms are going to be more virulent, and able to evade these immune systems. So that's why, really we need to be doing everything we can naturally to strengthen our immune systems against this stuff, because we're being attacked from every direction. And and this is the stuff that's going to be going on in the tribulation. It's the same stuff. It's the reason, Yahushua said that it would be just like it was in the days of Noah. Same thing was going on back then. They were genetically altering and changing everything. Plants, animals, insects, you name it. Humans. They were doing the same thing. And they're doing it again. And that's why he said, except that the days be shortened, no flesh be spared. And it ain't just talking about nuclear annihilation. It's talking about, wiping ourselves out with these genetics to where you're no longer human anymore. No, and animals and insects and everything else. Wiping them out through this genetic manipulation and stuff. And the weather modification and these fires and all that stuff, they're the ones burning everything up. And that follows exactly what it says there in Revelation. And of course, I would say that we're not far from the beginning of tribulation. The 7 years, the last week of Daniel, 70 weeks of Daniel, the time of Jacob's trouble. The time of Israel's trouble, and it's not just a little country over there, it's the whole of all the Western countries that have the descendants of the house of Israel. And we see this, this trouble, the time of Jacob's trouble, we see it. We see it happening everywhere around us. And it's not just, the genetic stuff too. It's the transhumanism, the technology aspect of it, the technocracy stuff, implanting chips into people's foreheads and stuff. That stuff is already going on. There's people that are volunteering to do it. And not just these people that are looking to try to do it to help them to be able to, like that paraplegic guy, to be able to use the computer and all that kind of stuff by thought. So if this person can, by thought, manipulate this computer, then what's to stop something from going the other direction? into your mind. I mean, there's nothing to stop it. And to connect you to AI. And RFK, he had one of his rallies or whatever, got up there and was, I mean, he's the one that's, really spilling the beans and revealing all this stuff about, all the stuff that's going on. I mean, he's been up there, talking about it, but he's one of them too. I mean, there's no way to sugarcoat it. I mean, he's maybe controlled opposition, but he's revealing all this stuff they've been doing. I mean, in the medical community and the food and all that stuff, he's been revealing all that stuff. And he's come out and is revealing about all these satellites they're putting up there. I mean, people all over see these satellite trains. They launch 100 of them at a time. And he said that their intention was to put 365,000 of them up to monitor the entire Earth, every inch of it. Even though they don't know what the Earth looks like. Nobody does. Because nobody's ever seen the entirety of the Earth. At least not humans. And because we can't get high enough to see it. We can only see part of it. And so they just guess. I mean, Neil deGrasse Tyson kind of says, well, we believe that it might be a oblate spheroid, or maybe it's shaped like a pear. I mean, they don't know. All these pictures that they've shown, they're just CGI. And every one of them, the one from 1969 that was captured from Apollo 11, the only picture. I mean, you would think if you're flying to the moon, boy, you'd have thousands of pictures. That'd be such a big event that you'd be taking pictures of the Earth, just as many as you could get. You got one picture. And then you see preceding ones after that, and the continents are totally different. Totally different. Replicated clouds. I mean, the clouds are just, repeats of clouds. Well, if you're really getting pictures of it, why do you need to do that? Why do you need to use CGI? Why do you have to replicate these clouds and all that stuff? Why can't you just see the way it really is? Because they can't. They don't know. They've never seen the entire Earth. They've seen, they can go over part of it and see parts of it, but they can't see all of it. They can't get high enough. You'd have to be all the way up at the very top to see it all. And no man can get there. He said, the Most High said, if you can search out, he told, I think it's in the book of Job, if you can search out the height, for the heavens for height, and the depths of the foundations of the earth, then I will reject or forget Israel, my people, forever. But you can't. Nobody's ever been to the top of the firmament, and nobody's ever been to the foundation of the earth. Not even close. So if you can't get to the very top, you can't see what the entire earth looks like. But there's people who have sailed around it. I mean, I think it was, what was his name? Admiral, he was a British admiral in the 1890s that he set out to go to the circumnavigate Antarctica. And he sailed for 60,000 miles, and he never went around Antarctica. He just come back to the same place where he started at. So, it's so these people, the power elite, the power that be, they know all this. I mean, it's, to them, it's, I mean, why again, they tell you in predictive programming, like in that song Skyfall, that was the theme song for the movie Skyfall. I mean, you listen to, I don't encourage people to listen to these things or anything, but just so you understand what they're telling you, that they're going to stand tall at sky fall. And then there's a video put out by the group Korn called Coming Undone. I don't listen to the lyrics. I turn the music down and all that, but I watched the video, and I mean, it shows the firmament dome cracking and pieces falling down. I mean, well, that's kind of what it says in Revelation, that the firmament is going to roll back like a scroll, and that it's going to be, this is at wrath, that there's going to be pieces of the firmament coming down that weigh like a talent. I think a talent of silver or gold was like 72 pounds. I mean, pieces like a millstone coming down. And it'll destroy all the cities of the world. I mean, they'll, not just that, but the earthquake, because the earth is tied to the firmament, to the dome. The dome comes down and is setting down on the enclosure that, the structure that the earth is supported in. So if it starts breaking apart, it's going to shake the earth. It's going to shake it like it's never been shook before. And there's going to be an earthquake like there's never been before. I mean, it says that the mountains move out of their place, and the islands disappear, and I mean, it's just going to be unbelievable. And all these cities are going to just be shook to pieces. And I think it's already working toward I mean, we see a lot of this and of course Hamashiach said that they'd be earthquakes there in Matthew 24, earthquakes in diverse places or different places. They are. I mean, we were seeing them all over. I mean, and columns of smoke mixed with fire, earth, the volcanoes. I mean, they're erupting everywhere. I mean, every day you hear about another one coming to life. And so, and some of it is stuff that we're doing. I've talked about how Tesla invented a resonation machine that resonates, and it can match, if you match the resonant frequency of an object, you can make it shake. You can make it shake apart. An example of it is, I don't know, unless you're my age, you probably don't remember, but Ella Fitzgerald, she had a real dynamic vocal range, and she could reach such a high pitch that she could make a glass shatter. And she did it in live demonstration. She, reached that high pitch, and it matched the resonance of that glass, and pow, it shattered it. You could see the glass start shaking, and she was able to sustain that harmonics until it matched the harmonic of that glass, and it shattered it. And it's the same thing, they can do this. I mean, it's not, it is science, but it's not rocket science. And Tesla proved it a long time ago. And he even said, the stuff that I'm inventing now is not for now, it's for the future. He said, the future is mine. And of course it is. I mean, the three-phase power system, and a whole lot of technologies that the government uses, that the powers that be use and have, that we're not privy to. Standing waves, scalar waves, all this kind of stuff that, most people, what? That stuff's all, if you understand science and electronics and stuff, I mean, it's not that hard to fathom it. But they, I've seen demonstrations of it, I mean, standing waves where these waves just set in one spot. They don't do like this, they don't do like that. They just up and down in the same spot. They don't move. Standing waves. And then scalar waves. And, in our environment, we are creatures of energy. I mean, we're powered with energy. The world functions off energy. Everything's electromagnetism. And originally it was in balance. It was in harmonious balance. This human resonance and all that stuff. The the resonances that were generated by all this crystal lattice that's under the earth. I mean, they found down there in Mexico, they broke through, they were in a mining down there, and they broke through a wall into a cavern down there, and they were these crystals. I mean, these crystals were big enough to walk on, and 30, 40, 50 feet long, big crystals. I mean, huge white crystals. And they found others, emeralds, great big huge chunks of emerald and other crystals like that all throughout the earth. And they are on a grid like. They call them ley lines or whatever, but that all these structures, these megalithic structures and stuff are built along at these nodes that are along these ley lines. Because the ancient people before the flood, they understood, they were getting this knowledge from these fallen ones that were telling them, build on these here, these energy sites. And, they were building these pyramids and other big structures right on these nodes where these ley lines come together, into a node. And so our government and the powers that be, I mean, they nonstop, anytime somebody makes a discovery about any of this stuff, pre-flood stuff, they own it like a duck on a June bug. Them and the Catholics. I mean, you can go look this, it's not anything that's hidden. I mean, but you can, it's not something they publish either. But you can find that all of these Catholic churches or whatever, or down in South American places like that, all over the world, are built on these sites, these ancient sites, and cave systems. I mean, these cave systems that go for hundreds, if not thousands of miles. And any time that they hear about a discovery of one of these caves or one of these sites, they swoop in there to try to see if there's any kind of tablets, technology, anything like that they can get their hands on. And then they bring it back and they research it, take it to their people that research that stuff. Same thing with all the skeletal remains of giants and all that stuff that they found here in North America and other places. The Smithsonian shoots in there, gets them, and that's the last you ever hear of them. And but a lot of this stuff is coming out because they have to reveal it, and people need to, they have to know the truth. So that which is hidden, or spoken in secret will be shouted from the rooftops, and that which is hidden in the closet will be revealed to the light. Well, that's what we're seeing. We're seeing the revealing. And it's so that people can make a rational, informed choice as to who they're going to serve and what they're going to believe. And so, like I said, I think it's going to go back to the way it was in the first century. Those people were persecuted. That was like tribulation for them. They were martyred by the tens of thousands. The Romans killed, not just the Romans, but the Jews too. I mean, listen to what Paul, he was, no telling how many deaths that he was responsible for. Because he spent every waking moment going anywhere where he thought they were Christians. And to get them, bring them back, and then kill them. And so, do you not think that was tribulation for those people? Persecution, martyrdom, in great numbers. And then, they began to try to escape to somewhere that, they thought that they could be at peace and, not be in fear of being persecuted. So they went to places, remote places, like for example, over to Switzerland, over in them mountains over there. It was, it was difficult terrain, and they were hiding out in, hollows and valleys back up in these mountains. And, because by the time that, the Catholic Church as we know it now, arrived on the scene during the time of Constantine and afterwards, they pursued them, everywhere. They pursued the true believers everywhere. And they fled. They fled to these places to try to get away from them. And then, lo and behold, around 600 AD, what pops on the scene? Islam. And what do? They work tirelessly to build up Islam into a great, army, military system, and they go over and they invade Europe. They go up through Portugal and Spain and on up until they finally stopped up in Austria, I think is where they stopped them at. And what are they doing? They're killing Christians, believers. They killed them by the millions. And you'll find ties to the Catholics to them as well. And other religious orders, the Jesuits and Freemasonry and the Illuminati, they're all tied together. And it's to get rid of Christians, get rid of true believers. And we're going to come to another time of martyrdom. It's just the way it is. And we're going to be tested. Just like them early Christians were tested. Christ told the church there at Sardis, I know that you're being martyred, and hold out to the end, and don't deny my name, and you'll receive a crown of life. They was one of the only ones. There was only 2 churches that he had anything good to say about. That everything he had to say was good about him. He did not admonish him for anything. The other 5 he did. And this last one, Laodicea, the lukewarm church that has need of nothing. I'd say that's the church of today, lukewarm. And they don't think they have need of nothing because they got money and they got, a nice church, preachers living good, taken care of. But I'm glad that I had the views and responses that I did. I'm thankful for the people who subscribed. I had some new subscribers. Thank you, folks. And one of the people that has been a subscriber for a while, and he often will leave a comment or make a comment, said that he thought I had pulled down his video or his post. And I've never pulled down a post yet since I've been doing this. I might not agree with what you say, as long as you're not cussing people, abusing somebody, or threatening somebody. I'm not gonna take your post down. You're free to believe whatever you want. I'm not a censor. I believe people have a right to say what they want to say. As long as they respect other people and don't try to, be disrespectful, start cussing people or slandering people or anything like that. You're free to believe whatever you want and say. This is an open, discussion here. This is how people, I hope people learn and get understanding. So I've never took one. I was tempted. I was tempted to block old dude that kept on about the reincarnation stuff. I mean, I kind of just got tired of it. I mean, but he, finally he just quit. But one of the brothers that watches the channel, me and him actually talk sometimes, and he's like, well, I wouldn't do that, man. I mean, and I said, well, I'm not, so I just was, it was just one of them things where, one side of me saying, yeah, man, just, block that guy and just, be done with it, but you got to give an answer for why you believe what you believe. Okay. And I state what I believe. I'm not ashamed of it. I love our Father and Yahushua. And, I believe that about 7 years ago that my eyes really were truly opened for the first time in my life. Even though I'd been going to church and all that, went to the dispensation, I was a Baptist, Free Will Baptist. I mean, I've been to a lot of different, denominations. The holiness, I mean, my mama kind of bounced us around, when she was looking for something. She was looking for a place to, a home and a place where she believed that it was true. I mean, she was searching. And, of course, we kids, we got tuck around with it, and so, of course, that can be confusing for a kid, I mean, you're hearing variations on different things, and here, like I say, about 7 years ago, when I went through a severe chastisement, actually, it's about 8 years ago now, my eyes got opened. And I mean, I began to see and have things revealed to me and I've read Scripture, been reading it often, off and on all my life, ever since I was able to read. And, I mean, it was like the scales had been dropped off my eyes. And I'm not saying I got all the answers. I'm a truth seeker. I'm continuously seeking to know the truth. I want to know the truth. I love the truth. And you have to have a love for the truth. You've got to. And I love it. I love the truth. I want to know the truth. And I pray all the time to know the truth and to not be deceived. Because Revelation chapter 12, it says he deceives the whole world. And would deceive even the very elect if it were possible. And why is it not possible? Because we have the Ruach HaKodesh to lead us to truth. And we have this. And they're going to come after it. I can guarantee you they're coming after this. This one in particular. So King James Version. And I'm not saying that the King James doesn't have a few little faults in it. It does. But they're well known. Like the word planet. I think it's in Nehemiah where it mentions planet. The only place in Scripture where the word planet is at. And it's actually, and people say, some people say, well, we speak English, why do we need to study Hebrew and Greek? Well, it's important to have a little bit of understanding about the root of words. Words mean things. And we have to know what the original meaning of a word was. It's just like the cross. The Greek, it's the stake. It means a stake. It means like a post. That was what the Greeks believed. That's what it meant. That's what that word meant. Okay, and so it's the same thing with planet. Well, the word there in the Greek is the word for constellation. Or not in the Greek, in the Hebrew, it's the word for constellation. Not planet. And you go back to Genesis, On the fourth day of creation, he didn't say nothing about no planets. It said the sun, the moon, and the stars. And what their purpose was. Because think about this. There was no sun and no moon until the fourth day, but yet he created plants and trees and all that stuff on the third day. Where was the light? There was already light. It was the light of our Creator. I'll tell you something else too. This heat has the yellow jackets, wasps, and hornets are, I've never seen nothing like it. I've never in my life seen anything like it. I mean hornets that big. Those Japanese hornets. I mean, and they've been coming in the store. They got a nest up in there that I can't get to. And this poison, I mean, I had some of that hornet spray that you can spray like 20 feet. And I was spraying one and it was hitting him. I mean, it was hitting him like that, like a stream. And he was just steady flying. I mean, it didn't drop him at all. Either the stuff is watered down to where it's just ineffective, or they've got some kind of resistance to it. I mean, it looked like he was going goo, 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 googling it down. But anyhow, I know I've kind of just wandered around here talking about a lot of different stuff, but you know, I think that we all need to, you know, follow what the Scriptures tells us, where it leads us, and we need to pray. I mean, I tell you this every time because I believe it. Man, I wake up at, you know, I wake up at, you know, about every night during the middle of the night, and I start praying. Not just for me, but for others. Sometimes, I mean, I have this burden on me for somebody, and I just, you know, I pray because I can feel, I've always had this feeling. I can feel evil. I can feel real evil. I'm talking about demonic. I can feel it. And you know, I mean, it's just a feeling like a feeling of dread, I mean, comes over you. And I don't feel it from everybody. It's just certain people sometimes, you know, you feel it. And so then people, I mean, I feel like led to pray that they be delivered from it. And other stuff, you know, I mean, I think the Father does, like there with Samuel and Eli, when Samuel was, you know, little, and the Father was, you know, Yahuwah was calling him, and he thought it was Eli. And Eli said, just, you know, lay there, and when you hear it again, just say, yes, Lord, you know, here am I. And because he said, you know, it's Yahuwah talking to you. And so we have to be listening, and when you have that waking, you know, like it's usually like between 3 and 5 in the morning. You know, I wake up because sometimes I'll look at my, you know, my clock and see what time it is. And when it happens, you know, sometimes I mean I can't hardly hold my eyes open, you know, I mean, because I don't normally get to bed until, you know, late. Because you know, I've talked about we got a little store, and it doesn't close until 11, and then you got to stock the store and, you know, do all this stuff, and a lot of times by the time you get settled in, you know, I mean, it's 1 or 2 o'clock, and then you go to bed, and then you got to get up the next day and do it all over again, you know, I mean, which we don't open until 10 a.m. But it's still, you know, if you're lucky, you get 7 hours sleep, you know, 6 hours, something like that. And from then till 11, you know, I mean, that's a lot of hours and all. And that's why a lot of times I just don't come and respond and, you know, to these comments and stuff, because I'm tired. You know, I don't really have, or I don't have the time. And so I do it, when I do my another video, I kind of respond to it. But I love all of you, and I want us all to stand before the Son of Man and to stand upright. And to be able to enter into His kingdom. But I really just I don't want to debate people. I just I want you to understand this is where I come from, my belief. I'm not telling you what to believe. You have to deal with that on your own. I mean, it's like I've said before, and I say it every week. Be good Bereans. Receive what I say with readiness of mind, but search the Scripture to see whether these things are so. And to follow 2 Timothy 2:15. I mean, I'm just a man. I'm not a God. I'm not some lofty one. I'm just a man. And I can make a mistake like anybody else. But what I say on here, I believe. I mean, and I don't say anything that I don't believe. And of course, like I say, I mean, it took some severe chastisement to finally get me on the right path and get my eyes opened up. And so, one of them stink bugs. I thought we'd been done with them. I hadn't seen any of them lately, and now there's one of them there. Pestilence. But anyway, I love you folks. Yeah, I kind of went around, kind of discussing that, plus a lot of what's going on. I mean, a lot of these events that are happening, a lot of the stuff that's going on, and I mean, pray for us here, that we get some rain. That they are intentionally drying us out here. And I'm kind of having to agree with my friend that there's more to it than, I think they are setting us up, because this is, this state is, these people are independent-minded people, and they're kind of resistant to the powers that are in place right now. They're, even though, not many of them claim to be believers or anything like that, but they're kind of just independent lot. And they don't like what's going on, and they vociferous about it, and and this is a really wilderness. To be honest with you, it's very sparsely populated in comparison to other states, and this area here and where we live at is pretty close to wilderness. There's lots of areas here. Where there's nothing. Nothing, man. Nothing but forest and, rugged. And so they want to drive people out of places like this. Places where people can make a stand or where they can hole up. They want them out. That's the reason, like out there in Northern California and Nevada and Arizona, and places where it's rugged. It's and they're trying to drive people out. They want them out, and they want them into these cities. They want people into these big cities. They're going to stack you up like in little sardine cans. That's what they want, and so they it's easier to control people. If you can gather them all, herd them all up, just like herding up a bunch of animals. That's the way they look at us. They look at us as, nothing more than cattle. Some of them even have commented, call us squid or jellyfish. Call us jellyfish. because they use mathematics and stuff to manipulate everything. I mean, as far as like the system of commerce is analogous to a circuit, an electrical circuit or electronic circuit. Switches and different pathways and all that kind of stuff. I mean, they can use the same kind of math as they use in electronics to manipulate economies. That's what they do. And because we don't understand that they're doing that and that that's how it works, they call us jellyfish, mindless jellyfish. And, but they can call me whatever they want to. And people can think whatever they want to, but, I know who rules and reigns. And who is the Most High and the Eternal. And it ain't the Antichrist and it ain't Hasatan. It is Yahuwah Elohim. And that's just nothing they're going to do or say is going to change my mind on that. Or anybody else. And of course they're going to try. They're going to have these re-education camps and all that stuff that they're going to try to send people to. You can see that kind of stuff over there in China. That's their model. Think about that. That's the model of these people is China. Is the model that they want to implement on the whole world. A surveillance state with re-education camps and 24/7 surveillance of everything you do, and constantly watching and monitoring you. And we're there. And so with that, I'm gonna drop it there. I know it's a lot to think about, a lot, but be prepared. Live your life as though it's not going to happen and you're going to go through it. And that means, Ephesians chapter 6, put on the whole armor that you may be able to stand in the evil day. Having done all to stand, stand. And with that, I love you folks. I'll be praying for you. I hope you will be blessed. And I will see you again on the next Shabbat if Yahuwah is willing.